The news of the Velkari fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species heard what had happened. Every government watched the footage with growing horror. The mighty Velkari Dominion, rulers of 1,000 worlds, had lost their greatest fleet in 6 hours. To humans, a species that had only reached the stars 20 years ago. Councillor Therazine of the Ashkari Union sat in her chamber and watched the broadcast for the 5th time. She was old, even by her species' long-lived standards. She had seen wars and peace treaties. She had watched civilizations rise and fall, but she had never seen anything like this. They were holding back, her aide said quietly. All this time, while we thought they were weak, they were preparing. No, Therazine corrected. They were not holding back. They were building. There is a difference. Holding back implies you have power and choose not to use it. The humans did not have this power 3 years ago. They created it. In 3 years? That is impossible. Clearly not. Therazine stood and walked to her window, looking out at her world's capital city. The Velkari made a mistake. They gave humanity time and motivation. They created their own worst enemy. Across the galaxy, the Velkari Dominion was in chaos. High Chancellor Vexathera had called for a coalition, demanding that all member species contribute ships and resources for a massive counterattack. Some agreed immediately, driven by fear or loyalty. Others hesitated. The Morthic Collective, one of the Dominion's oldest members, sent a message declining to contribute further military forces. Their reasoning was simple. Why fight a war that the Velkari had started through their own arrogance? Vexathera was furious. She threatened sanctions and military action against the Morthic. They responded by withdrawing from the Dominion entirely. It was the first crack in the foundation. Others would follow. Meanwhile, humanity was not resting. Premier Sunhee knew that one victory did not win a war. The Velkari still had thousands of ships, even if they were scattered and disorganized. They would recover eventually. Humanity needed to keep the pressure on. We start Operation Shattered Sky, General Daehyun announced at the War Council. We hit them everywhere at once. Military targets only. We cripple their ability to rebuild. Director Jiwon pulled up a star map covered in red markers. These are Velkari shipyards, 12 major facilities, 37 minor ones. We take them all out in coordinated strikes. And their fleet, Premier Sunhee asked. Scattered across 24 systems trying to regroup. We keep them scattered. Ghost Fleet squadrons will hit them whenever they try to concentrate. Ambassador Hyunwoo spoke up from his position at the table. What about civilian casualties? We need to be careful. If we start killing civilians, we become the monsters they claim we are. Agreed, Sunhee said firmly. Military targets only. We are not the Velkari. We do not burn colonies. Over the next month, humanity executed Operation Shattered Sky with devastating precision. Ghost Fleet squadrons appeared without warning at Velkari military installations, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The stellar lances fired from across the galaxy, their beams obliterating shipyards in seconds. The Velkari tried to defend their facilities, but they could not be everywhere at once. Every time they concentrated forces at one location, the humans hit 3 others. It was a nightmare of logistics and timing, and humanity was winning. Commander Yuna led special operations teams deeper into Velkari space. These were not AI ships or massive weapons. These were small teams of highly trained soldiers who infiltrated enemy installations and sabotaged them from within. On the Velkari industrial world of Kexthor, Yuna's team planted explosives in the main power distribution center. The explosion did not kill anyone, but it knocked out power to the entire hemisphere. Manufacturing stopped. Ships under construction sat incomplete. The Velkari economy lost billions in a single day. This is terrorism, one of Yuna's soldiers said as they escaped. No, Yuna replied coldly. Terrorism targets civilians to create fear. We target military and industrial sites to stop their war machine. There is a difference. But the most dramatic demonstration came when Director Jiwon activated the silence protocol over the Velkari capital world. The planet was not a military target. It was a political and economic center, home to 3 billion Velkari. The attack was not meant to kill. It was meant to send a message. At exactly noon local time, every electronic system on the planet shut down. Computers died. Communications went dark. Transportation stopped. The power grid collapsed. For 48 hours, the most advanced world in the Velkari Dominion was thrown back to the pre-industrial age. No one died, but everyone was terrified. When the systems came back online, they found a message waiting in every computer network. We could have destroyed you. We chose not to. Remember this mercy the next time you think about attacking humanity. The effect was profound. The Velkari population began questioning their leadership. Why were they fighting this war? What had humanity done to deserve invasion? The government's propaganda said humans were weak primitives, but weak primitives did not defeat the largest fleet ever assembled. They did not reach across the galaxy to touch the Velkari homeworld itself. High Chancellor Vexithara tried to maintain control. She gave speeches about Velkari pride and destiny. She promised that humanity would be crushed. But fewer people believed her now. In her private chambers, Operative Bomi listened and recorded everything. She had been working as a servant in the Chancellor's palace for 8 months. Now she was humanity's most valuable intelligence asset in Velkari space. She discovered something interesting. Vexithara had known. Not everything, but enough. Intelligence reports had warned her that humanity might be more advanced than they appeared. The report suggested caution, suggested better reconnaissance before any military action. Vexithara had ignored those reports. She had been so certain of Velkari superiority that she had dismissed any suggestion that humans could be a threat, and she had suppressed that information, keeping it from her own military and government. Bomi sent the files to Director Jiwan. Within hours, they were broadcast across the galaxy. The revelation was explosive. The Velkari people discovered that their leader had known the risks and had led them into disaster anyway. Several Velkari military commanders openly called for her removal. 3 member species announced they were leaving the Dominion. Councillor Therazin watched the news with sad eyes. The Velkari Dominion, which had existed for 3,000 years, was tearing itself apart. And it had taken humanity just 3 months to do it. She sent a secret message to Ambassador Hyunwoo, requesting a private meeting. They met in neutral space on a small station that belonged to neither side. "You are winning," Therazin said without preamble. "The Velkari cannot sustain this war. Their economy is collapsing. Their member species are abandoning them. Within 6 months, the Dominion will fracture completely." "Good," Hyunwoo said coldly. "But at what cost?" Therazin leaned forward. "Humanity is making enemies. Other species watch and wonder if they will be next. They see your weapons and your ruthlessness. They fear you." "They should," Hyunwoo replied. "We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We offered friendship. The galaxy responded by trying to destroy us. If fear keeps them from attacking us again, then let them fear. Fear breeds hatred. Hatred breeds war. You are creating the very future you wish to avoid." Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What would you have us do? Surrender? Let them win so the galaxy feels comfortable?" "No," Therazin said softly. "I would have you show mercy. The Velkari leadership is the enemy, not the Velkari people. Destroy their military, yes, but show that humanity can be generous in victory. Show that you fight for justice, not revenge. Justice and revenge look very similar when you are the victim. Perhaps. But the galaxy will judge you not by how you fight, but by what you do when you win." Hyunwoo left the meeting troubled. He reported the conversation to Premier Sunhee, who listened carefully. "She is right," Sunhee said finally. "We are winning the war. But we must think about the peace that follows. If we become tyrants, we will face endless rebellion. If we show wisdom, we might build something better." "The people want revenge," General Daehyun warned. "They remember the colonies that burned. They remember the dead." "I know," Sunhee said, "but we must be better than our pain. We must be better than the Velkari." She made a decision. Humanity would continue the military campaign, but with new rules. Civilian areas were completely off limits. Any Velkari ship that surrendered would be treated with dignity. Prisoners of war would receive proper care. The Velkari were stunned by this change. They had expected humans to be as cruel as they had been. Instead, they found an enemy that fought hard but fair. It was confusing, and it was effective. More Velkari ships began surrendering. More member species left the Dominion. The war continued, but the outcome was becoming clear. Humanity was winning, and they were doing it without losing their souls in the process. But High Chancellor Vexithara was not done. She had one final card to play, One desperate gambit that would force humanity to reveal just how ruthless they were willing to be. The war had been raging for 3 months. Humanity was winning every battle, but the victories felt hollow. Because the Velkari, desperate and dying, had changed tactics. If they could not win on the battlefield, they would make humanity pay in blood and grief. Captain Mire stood on the bridge of her transport ship and looked at the ruins of Colony Jericho. She had been here before 2 years ago. Back then, it had been a thriving settlement with 15 million people. Farms and factories, schools and hospitals, children playing in parks. Now there was nothing but ash. "Sir," her second officer said quietly, "scans confirm no survivors. They burned the entire colony from orbit, used thermal weapons. Everything is gone." Mireille closed her eyes. 15 million people. 15 million civilians who had done nothing except exist in the wrong place when the Velkari decided to make a statement. This was the 5th colony they had found like this. The Velkari could not win, so they were destroying everything they could reach before humanity stopped them. It was spite. Pure, simple spite. "Get me Premier Sunhee," Mireille said, her voice shaking with rage. On Earth, Premier Sunhee received reports from across human space. The civilian casualties were catastrophic. Colonies burned. Refugee ships attacked. The Velkari were not even pretending to follow the rules of war anymore. They were killing anyone they could, as much as they could, before their military completely collapsed. General Daehyun slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot continue. We need to hit them harder. Make them hurt so badly they stop." "How?" Director Juwan asked tiredly. "We have already destroyed their shipyards. We have crippled their economy. We are winning. But winning does not bring back the dead. Then we need to make them understand that continuing this war costs more than surrendering." That was when Dr. Taman spoke up. He had been quiet during the entire meeting, sitting in the corner. Now he stood and walked to the front of the room. "There is one option," he said quietly. "I did not want to present it. I hoped we would never need it. But given the circumstances," he pulled up a holographic display. It showed a device complex and strange-looking. "This is Nightfall." Everyone leaned forward to look. Even General Daehyun looked confused. "What does it do?" "It manipulates stellar radiation," Taman explained. "We install it near a star. It causes the star to emit a very specific type of radiation pulse. This radiation is harmless to electronics and most life forms. But for any biological species exposed to it," he paused, "they become sterile. No children are born, ever again." The room went silent. "The current generation lives normal lives," Taman continued. "They age and die naturally. But there is no next generation. The affected species simply ends. It is slow extinction, painless but inevitable. Premier Sunhee felt sick. "You built this? When?" 2 years ago. It was a theoretical project that became practical. I told myself we would never use it, that just having it as a deterrent would be enough." "This is genocide," Ambassador Hyunwoo said flatly. "Yes," Taman agreed.
"It is, which is why I am presenting it to you all."
"The question is, do we use it?" General Daehyun was the first to speak. "If we deploy this at the Velkari homeworld, the war ends immediately. They surrender or they die as a species. It would save human lives. It would also make us monsters," Hyunwoo countered. "We are already monsters to them. They call us demons and plague bringers. What difference does it make what they call us if our people stop dying?" The argument raged for hours. Military commanders wanted to use Nightfall. Diplomats argued against it. Scientists discussed the technical aspects. Ethicists debated the moral implications. Premier Sunhee listened to all of it. Then she made a decision that surprised everyone. "We will hold a referendum," she announced.
Humanity will vote.
"If we use this weapon, we all bear the responsibility. This is too important for one person to decide." The decision was controversial. Some argued that military strategy should not be determined by popular vote. Others said this was exactly the kind of decision that required democratic input. But somehow word of Nightfall leaked to the press. Within days, the entire galaxy knew about humanity's extinction weapon. The reaction was immediate and terrified. Species that had been neutral suddenly condemned humanity. The Ashkari Union sent urgent messages begging humans not to use the weapon. Even some of the Velkari's former allies began calling for an immediate ceasefire. Counselor Therazine sent a personal message to Premier Sunhee. "If you use this weapon, You become the very evil you claim to fight. You prove that humanity is too dangerous to exist alongside other civilizations. Please, I beg you, do not do this. On human worlds, the debate was just as intense. People who had lost family to Valkyrie attacks wanted revenge. Others argued that using Nightfall would destroy humanity's moral foundation. Protests broke out in cities across Earth. Captain Mirai addressed her crew about the vote. I have seen the Valkyrie burn our colonies. I have held dying children who did nothing wrong except be human. Part of me wants to see the Valkyrie suffer as we have suffered. She paused, looking at the faces of her soldiers. But if we use this weapon, what do we become? They attacked us because they thought we were inferior. Dangerous, wrong. If we commit genocide, we prove them right. We become the monsters they claimed we were. The vote was held across all human space. Billions of people participated. The numbers came in slowly, system by system, world by world. It was close. Terrifyingly close. In the end, 52% of humanity voted against using Nightfall. 48% voted in favor. The margin was less than 300 million votes out of 20 billion cast. Premier Sunhee addressed the galaxy with the results. She looked tired, aged by the weight of the war. Humanity has chosen, she said simply. We will not use Nightfall. We will not commit genocide, no matter how justified our anger might seem. We will win this war through conventional means, no matter how long it takes. She paused, her eyes hard. But make no mistake, we have this weapon, it exists. And if any species attempts to exterminate humanity, if anyone tries to do to us what we refuse to do to others, we will use it. This is not mercy. This is a promise. Attack our civilians again and we will end you as a species. The broadcast ended. The reaction in Valkyrie space was shock. They had expected humanity to use the weapon. They had been preparing for extinction. Instead, humanity had shown restraint even when they did not have to. High Chancellor Vexithera, who had ordered the colony burnings, found herself isolated. Her own government turned on her. Military commanders who had followed her orders now faced courts-martial for war crimes. The Valkyrie people, staring at their possible extinction, began demanding peace. Within a week, Vexithara was removed from power in a bloodless coup. The new Valkyrie leadership immediately requested peace negotiations. But the war was not over. The Valkyrie military was still operational, still capable of fighting. Millions of soldiers and thousands of ships remained active. The question was whether they would surrender or fight to the bitter end. General Daehyun met with his commanders to plan the final campaigns. We hit their remaining fleet concentrations hard. We give them a choice, surrender or die. But we make it clear that surrender means fair treatment. Will they believe us? Someone asked. They will have to. We have shown we keep our word. We said we would not use Nightfall, and we did not. Now we show them that we also keep our word about treating prisoners fairly. Operation Final Dawn began 2 weeks after the referendum. The Ghost Fleet, reinforced with conventional human warships, moved on the last major Valkyrie fleet positions. But this time, before each battle, they broadcast a message. Surrender now. Power down your weapons. You will be treated with dignity. Your crews will be returned home when peace is established. There is no shame in surviving. Some Valkyrie ships fought, they died. Others surrendered and found that humanity kept its promise. Prisoners were given food, medical care, and respect. Word spread quickly. More ships began surrendering without firing a shot. Captain Mirai led the liberation of the occupied colony worlds. Valkyrie occupation forces, cut off and unsupported, mostly surrendered without resistance. They had heard what happened to those who fought. They had also heard that humanity treated prisoners fairly. Commander Yuna's special operations teams focused on securing Valkyrie war criminals. The officers who had ordered the colony burnings were arrested and held for trial. They would face justice, not revenge. Dr. Taman watched the war wind down from his laboratory on Mars. He looked at the Nightfall device and made a decision. He did not destroy it, they might need it someday. But he encrypted all the data behind codes that required authorization from humanity's entire leadership council. No single person would ever be able to activate it alone. Director Jiwon received a message from Operative Bomi in Valkyrie space. The operative had successfully documented the orders that led to the colony burnings. War crimes tribunals would have evidence to convict the guilty parties. 6 months after the peace talks collapsed, the war ended. Not with a dramatic final battle, but with a series of surrenders and agreements. The Velkari Dominion fractured into its component species. Those who had committed war crimes faced trial. Those who had simply followed orders were allowed to go home. Humanity had won. But the victory felt different than anyone expected. Fleet Marshal Krelvo stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the displays with satisfaction. 10,347 ships, the largest fleet the Velkari Dominion had assembled in 2 centuries. And all of it pointed at one target, humanity's home system. They will surrender, he said to his second-in-command. They must. No rational species would fight against these odds. His officers agreed. Intelligence reports said humanity had maybe 400 warships. Old ships too, built with primitive technology. This would not be a battle. This would be an extermination. Begin final preparations, Krelvo ordered. We jump to human space in 1 hour. Send the final ultimatum. If they do not surrender immediately, we destroy their homeworld. The message was sent. The fleet began powering up their faster-than-light drives. Officers checked weapons systems. Marines prepared for boarding actions. Everyone expected this to be over quickly. Lieutenant Sora watched from her hidden position on a Velkari supply ship. She was human, but she did not look it anymore. Months of genetic modification and surgery had transformed her appearance. She looked like a minor Velkari species. Just another crew member. No one paid attention to her. Her mission was simple. Stay with the fleet and transmit their exact position when the time came. She had been doing this for 8 months, watching and waiting. Now finally the waiting was over. She activated her hidden transmitter and sent the coordinates. Then she walked calmly to the escape pod bay. In 5 minutes she would eject herself into space. Human recovery ships would pick her up. Either that or she would die alone in the void. It was worth the risk. On the Ghost Fleet command ship, Admiral Kyung-ho received Sora's transmission. He looked at the numbers and nodded. Perfect positioning. The Velkari fleet was exactly where they needed to be. All ships, he broadcast. Execute jump in 30 seconds. Formation pattern Delta 7. Weapons free on arrival. Around him 5,000 ships prepared to move. But these were not normal ships. There were no crews running to battle stations. No officers shouting orders. Just the quiet hum of computers and the soft glow of AI consciousness flowing through quantum processors. Hanul, the primary strategic AI, spoke through the ship's speakers. Admiral, all units report ready. Victory probability calculated at 92%. And the other 8%? Kyung-ho asked. Acceptable losses. The mission will succeed regardless. Kyung-ho had never liked working with AI. They were too cold, too logical, but he could not argue with their effectiveness. Hanul could coordinate 5,000 ships with perfect precision. No human commander could match that. Begin jump, he ordered. 5,000 ships vanished from normal space. On the Velkari flagship, alarms started screaming. Officers shouted in confusion. The displays showed impossible things. Ships were appearing all around them. Thousands of ships materializing out of faster-than-light space in perfect formation. Impossible, Krelvo shouted. They cannot have that many ships. Our intelligence said, our intelligence was wrong. His sensor officer screamed back. Detecting 5,000 enemy vessels. They have us completely surrounded. Krelvo stared at the displays. The human ships were different from anything he had seen. Black hulls that seemed to absorb light, strange configurations that made no sense, and they were already moving, already attacking before his fleet could even respond. All ships, return fire, break formation and scatter. But it was too late. The Ghost Fleet attacked with mechanical precision. Ships that could think in microseconds made decisions before Velkari commanders even understood what was happening. They executed maneuvers that should have been impossible, turning at speeds that would have killed any biological crew. A Velkari destroyer tried to target a human ship. Before it could fire, 3 Ghost Fleet vessels hit it from different angles with concentrated beam weapons. The destroyer's shields collapsed in seconds. The hull followed moments later. Krelvo's officers tried to fight back. They were experienced warriors. They knew tactics and strategy, but they were fighting an enemy that thought 10 times faster than they did. Every order they gave was already outdated by the time it reached their ships. Damage report, Krelvo demanded. We have lost 800 ships in the first 10 minutes. Our formations are breaking. Communications are getting jammed. 800 ships. In 10 minutes, Krelvo felt cold fear creeping up his spine. This was not supposed to happen. They had the numbers. They had the advantage. Recall the fleet. Fall back to Rally Point Gamma.
Sir, we are surrounded.
There is no clear escape route. Admiral Kyung-ho watched the battle from his command ship. The displays showed the Velkari fleet in chaos. Hanul's tactical projections had been correct. The enemy could not adapt fast enough to AI speed warfare. Phase 2, he ordered. Deploy cascade weapons. Across the Ghost Fleet, hatches opened. Small missiles launched, hundreds of them. They were not aimed at specific targets. They simply flew into the thickest concentrations of Velkari ships and detonated. The explosions were small. Disappointing even, some Velkari officers laughed in relief. Human weapons were not so impressive after all. Then the nanomachines activated. A Velkari cruiser felt its shields beginning to fail. Not from weapon fire, but from millions of tiny machines eating through the shield generators themselves. The crew tried to reboot the systems, but the nanomachines were already inside, consuming the machinery, replicating with each molecule they converted. The cruiser went dark. Then the ship next to it, then another. Like a plague, the nanomachine spread from ship to ship, carried on debris and exhaust trails. Every Velkari vessel they touched began to die from the inside out. Krelvo watched in horror as his fleet dissolved. Ships simply stopped working, their systems consumed by something invisible. He ordered weapons fire to destroy affected ships before the contamination could spread, but it was too late. The nanomachines were everywhere, sir. Navigation systems are failing. We are receiving reports from across the fleet. FTL drives are not responding. Krelvo felt his blood turn to ice. What? How? What he did not know, what none of the Velkari knew, was that Lieutenant Sora had not been alone. For months, dozens of human operatives had infiltrated the Velkari fleet. They had worked as technicians and engineers, and they had been planting viruses in every ship they touched. Now those viruses activated. Navigation computers crashed. Faster-than-light drives locked down. Ships that tried to jump to safety found themselves stranded, unable to escape. We are trapped, his second-in-command said quietly. They planned this. All of it. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was not a battle, really. It was slaughter. The Ghost Fleet moved through the Velkari formation like sharks through fish. Hanul coordinated every attack with perfect efficiency. Ships that tried to surrender were allowed to power down their weapons. Ships that kept fighting were destroyed. By the time it ended, the Velkari had lost over 10,000 ships. Only 214 escaped, and those were all heavily damaged. The Ghost Fleet had lost 37 vessels. Admiral Kyung-ho stood on his bridge and looked at the debris field that had once been the pride of the Velkari military. He felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction that humanity had proven its point. Send the message, he ordered. Across the galaxy, every species with a communication system received the same broadcast. It showed the destroyed Velkari fleet. It showed human ships moving untouched through the wreckage, and it showed Admiral Kyung-ho's face. Humanity gave peace a chance, he said calmly. You chose war. You laughed at our diplomats. You burned our colonies. You killed our people. Now you will learn why that was a mistake. He paused, letting the images of destruction speak for themselves. We do not want to fight, but we will not be victims. Any species that attacks humanity will face the same fate as this fleet. We have shown you what we can do. Do not make us show you again. The broadcast ended. The Ghost Fleet vanished back into faster-than-light space, leaving only debris and the few survivors to tell the tale. On Earth, Premier Sunhee watched the reports coming in. Total victory. Minimal losses. The Velkari military had been broken in a single engagement, but she did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. The Velkari would not accept this defeat quietly. They would come again with more ships and more allies, and humanity would be ready. General Daehyun stood beside her. The galaxy knows now, he said. They know we can fight. They know we can win. Yes, Sunhee replied. But do they know when to stop? Will the Velkari surrender, or will they fight to the last ship? I guess we will find out, Daehyun said. In Velkari space, High Chancellor Vexithara received the news of the fleet's destruction. She sat in her office for a long time, saying nothing. Then she stood and walked to her communication console. Call an emergency council, she said. Tell all member species that humanity is now our primary enemy. Tell them we need every ship, every resource. We will crush these humans once and for all. Her aide hesitated. Chancellor, perhaps we should consider negotiating. No. Vexthera interrupted coldly. We do not negotiate with inferiors. We destroy them. The war had only begun. 3 years earlier, Earth had received its first message from an alien civilization. The news had spread across the planet like wildfire. Humanity was not alone. The stars were full of life, and they wanted to meet us. Premier Sunhee had stood before the United Humanity Council with tears in her eyes. This is the greatest day in human history, she had said. We are joining a community of civilizations that spans the galaxy. She had been so wrong. The first contact had seemed friendly enough. The Velkhari sent ambassadors who smiled and spoke of trade and cooperation. They offered to share star maps and technology. They welcomed humanity to the galactic community. But within 6 months, everything changed. Human ships began disappearing near the border zones. Colonies reported hostile encounters. When humanity asked the Velkhari for help, they were told to handle their own problems. When humanity tried to investigate, they were warned to stay out of Velkhari space. Then came the attacks. Not from the Velkhari themselves, but from species under Velkhari protection. Pirates, they claimed. Raiders who acted on their own. But the attacks were too organized, too well planned. And they always seemed to know exactly where human ships would be. General Daehyun had seen the pattern immediately. He brought his concerns to Premier Sunhee in a private meeting. They're testing us, he said. They want to see how we respond, how strong we are. And, Sunhee asked, we're not strong enough. Not yet, our ships are slower. Our weapons are weaker. In a straight fight, we lose. Badly. That was when Dr. Taman entered the picture. He was a scientist, but not the kind who worked on farming or medicine. He worked on weapons. Very specific weapons. Weapons that most civilizations had banned centuries ago. I have a proposal, Taman said at that first meeting. But you're not going to like it, he was right. Premier Sunhee did not like it. But she listened anyway. The galaxy has rules, Taman explained. Old rules set by ancient civilizations. Rules about what weapons you can and cannot build. Rules about artificial intelligence. Rules about genetic engineering. Rules about weapons of mass destruction. And, General Daehyun asked, and humanity never agreed to those rules. We developed alone. We were never part of that system. Which means we're not bound by their restrictions. Sunhee understood immediately. You want to build weapons that are illegal by galactic law. I want to build weapons that will make them think twice about attacking us, Taman corrected. Weapons they won't expect because they've forgotten such things are even possible. The decision had been agonizing. Sunhee spent weeks consulting with advisors, ethicists, and military leaders. In the end, the choice was simple. Build the weapons or watch humanity get destroyed. The Prometheus Initiative was born in secret. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune, humanity built shipyards that did not appear on any official records. On Mars, underground factories produced components that no one talked about. On Earth's moon, research facilities worked around the clock on projects that had no names, and humanity kept losing. Kept retreating. Kept appearing weak. It was all part of the plan. Every defeat taught humanity something new about Velkhari tactics. Every lost colony gave them time to move more resources to secret locations. Every negotiation that failed was another week for the factories to keep building. Dr. Taman's team developed technologies that made him lose sleep at night. The Cascade missiles were perhaps the worst. They were small devices that released nanomachines, tiny robots smaller than bacteria. These machines had one purpose: consume everything they touched and replicate themselves. A single missile could theoretically consume an entire fleet, growing exponentially with each ship it destroyed. This is a war crime, one of Taman's assistants had said when she saw the first successful test. Only if we use it on civilians. Taman replied coldly. These are for military targets only. Then there was the Ghost Fleet. Ships with no crew controlled entirely by artificial intelligence. The Velkhari had banned AI warfare centuries ago after a war that nearly destroyed their civilization. They believed such technology was too dangerous, too unpredictable, but humanity had been developing AI for hundreds of years. And they were very, very good at it. Commander Yuna led the development of what she called smart warfare. The Ghost Fleet ships could think faster than any biological crew. They could make decisions in microseconds. They could coordinate attacks with perfect precision. And most importantly, They could take maneuvers that would kill a living crew, pulling turns at 50 times Earth's gravity. "It's not fair," Yuna said during one presentation, "but we're not trying to be fair. We're trying to survive." The Stellar Lances were different. They were ground-based weapons, massive installations that could focus incredible amounts of energy into a single beam. That beam could strike targets light years away with pinpoint accuracy. They required enormous amounts of power, but humanity had that. They had fusion reactors. They had solar collectors. They had resources the Velkari had never bothered to use efficiently. And then there was the Silence Protocol. Director Jiwan had come up with this one personally. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a virus, a digital infection that could spread through any computer network. Once activated, it would shut down every electronic system in a region of space. Ships would go dark. Stations would lose power. Communications would die. "It's a reset button," Jiwan explained. "We push it and everything stops working. Including our own systems, of course. But we'll know when it's coming." They won't. For 3 years, humanity built and planned and prepared. They sent diplomats who genuinely tried to make peace because peace was always preferable to war. They made concessions and compromises, hoping the Velkari would be satisfied. But they also prepared for the inevitable. General Daehyun coordinated it all. Thousands of automated shipyards in the outer system, training facilities on 100 worlds, supply depots hidden in asteroid fields, weapons platforms that looked like mining stations. Everything built in secret. Everything ready to activate at a moment's notice. The human casualties were real. The lost colonies were real. Every death weighed on Premier Sun-hee's conscience. But she kept the secret because the alternative was worse. If the Velkari knew what humanity was building, they would have struck immediately with overwhelming force. So humanity appeared weak, desperate, beaten, and the Velkari believed it. Now, as Ambassador Hyunwoo's shuttle raced back to Earth, the message went out across all of human space. 3 words that changed everything. All assets active. In the Kuiper Belt, 5,000 Ghost Fleet ships powered up their engines. On Mars, weapons factories opened their doors and began loading missiles onto transport ships. On Earth, General Daehyun stood in the command center and watched as every secret base, every hidden installation, every classified project came online. Dr. Taman stood beside him, looking at the displays. "This is it," he said quietly. "Everything we've built. Everything we've prepared for. Are you ready?" Daehyun asked. "No," Taman admitted, "but we're out of time for being ready. They're coming for us, so we go for them first." Premier Sun-hee addressed humanity from her office on Earth. The speech was broadcast to every human world, every ship, every station. "My fellow humans," she began. "For 3 years we have endured attacks. We have lost colonies and loved ones. We have tried everything to make peace with the Velkari Dominion. We have compromised and retreated and begged for mercy." She paused, her eyes hard. "They have given us none. Instead, they have assembled a fleet to invade our space and end our existence as a free people. They believe we are weak. They believe we will surrender without a fight. They are wrong. Across human space, people watched and listened. Humanity has been preparing, building, planning. We did not want this war, but we will finish it. Today, we show the Velkari what happens when you push humanity too far. Today, we show the galaxy that we are not victims. We are survivors, and we will not go quietly into the night." The speech ended. The preparations were complete. Now came the hard part. Now came the war. The conference room on Meridian Station was cold. Not from the temperature, but from the atmosphere that filled it. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat at the long table, his hands folded in front of him. He had been sitting in this same chair for 6 weeks now. 6 long weeks of talking, negotiating, and begging for peace. Across from him sat the aliens. 12 different species, all part of something called the Velkari Dominion. They ruled most of the galaxy. They had the ships, the weapons, and the power. Humanity had none of that. Humanity was new to space, new to this galactic community, and very much alone. High Chancellor Vexithera led the alien delegation. She was tall, with purple skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Her 4 eyes watched Hyunwoo with something that looked like amusement. She found this funny. All of this was funny to her. "Ambassador," she said, her voice smooth and cold. "We have been patient. Very patient. But our patience has limits." Hyunwoo took a deep breath. Behind him stood Captain Mirai. commander of the small human fleet that had escorted them here. She wore her uniform with pride. Despite the scars on her face from the Battle of Proxima, that battle had been a disaster. Humanity had lost 20 ships and thousands of lives. The Velkari had barely noticed. "We have made many compromises," Hyunwoo said carefully. "We have agreed to pull back from the outer colonies. We have agreed to limit our fleet size. We have even agreed to share our medical technology. What more do you want?" Vexthara laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Several other aliens joined her. The sound echoed in the room, making Hyunwoo's skin crawl. "What we want," Vexthara said, standing up, "is simple. Complete surrender. You will give up all colonies beyond your home system. You will give us your faster-than-light technology. You will accept Velkari governors on your worlds, and you will acknowledge that humanity exists only because we allow it." The room went silent. Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. This was it. This was what 6 weeks of negotiation had led to. Not peace, but slavery. "You cannot be serious," he said quietly. "Oh, but we are." Vexthara smiled, showing too many teeth. "You have 72 hours to accept our terms. If you refuse, we will take what we want by force." She pressed a button on the table. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed space filled with ships. Thousands and thousands of ships. More ships than Hyunwoo had ever seen in one place. "This is our fleet," Vexthara continued. "Over 10,000 warships. They are positioned just outside your territory. They have been gathering there for weeks while you sat here thinking you were negotiating for peace." Hyunwoo felt sick. It had all been a trick, a delay. The Velkari had never wanted peace. They had wanted time to bring their full military might to bear. And humanity had given them that time. Captain Mirai stepped forward, her hand on her weapon. But Hyunwoo raised his hand, stopping her. Violence here would accomplish nothing. They were surrounded by alien security forces, outnumbered and outgunned. 72 hours, Vexthara repeated. "Then we come for you. All of you." The alien delegations began to leave. Some were laughing. Others looked at the humans with pity. One or two seemed uncomfortable, but none spoke up. None offered help. Humanity stood alone. As the last alien left the room, Hyunwoo slumped in his chair. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of his life spent trying to save humanity through words. And it had all been for nothing. "Sir," Captain Mirai said softly. She held out her datapad. "Message from Earth." It came in encrypted, highest priority. Hyunwoo took the device with shaking hands. He entered his personal code and read the message. As he read, his expression changed. The despair faded. His eyes grew cold and hard. The message was short, just 3 words. "All assets active." Below that was a longer explanation from Director Ji-won, head of human intelligence. As Hyunwoo read, he felt something he had not felt in months: hope and anger. A lot of anger. He looked up at Captain Mirai. "Get everyone home now. Every human on this station needs to be evacuated within the next 6 hours." "Sir?" "What's happening?" "We're going home, Captain. And then we're going to show the Velkari what happens when you push humanity too far." Mirai looked at the datapad. Her eyes widened as she read the message. "Sir, is this real? Do we really have—" "Yes," Hyunwoo interrupted. "Every word is true. For 3 years, while they burned our colonies and killed our people, we were building, preparing, waiting for them to make one final mistake. And they just did," Mirai said, understanding dawning on her face. "They just did," Hyunwoo confirmed. He stood up, straightening his jacket. "The peace talks are over. They wanted war. They're going to get war, but not the war they expected." 6 hours later, the last human shuttle left Meridian Station. The aliens barely noticed. They were too busy celebrating their victory. They had broken humanity's spirit. They had won without even fighting, or so they thought. On the shuttle, Hyunwoo looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velkari fleet waited. 10,000 ships ready to invade human space, ready to end humanity's dream of the stars. But humanity had a secret that the Velkari could not imagine, a secret that had been 3 years in the making. "Captain," Hyunwoo said, "send a message to Earth, tell them we're coming home, and tell them to begin Phase 1. "What should I tell our colonies, sir?" "The civilian populations are terrified. They've seen the Velkari fleet on their sensors." Hyunwoo thought about that. He thought about all the people who had died in the past 3 years. He thought about the colonies that had been destroyed. He thought about the families torn apart by Velkari aggression. Tell them, he said slowly, that the time for fear is over. Tell them that humanity has been quiet for too long. Tell them that we gave peace every chance, and now we give war everything we have. The shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home. Behind them, the Velkari celebrated. They had won. Humanity would surrender or be destroyed. They had no idea what was coming. In the depths of space, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, something was waking up. Weapons that had been built in silence were powering on. Ships that should not exist were preparing to launch. And across human space, millions of soldiers, scientists, and citizens received the same message. The time had come. Humanity was done talking. Now they would show the galaxy what humans were really capable of when pushed to the edge. And the galaxy would never forget it.